All right, buckle your seatbelts. Here we go. Marijuana is a clear and present danger to the people of Colorado. Nearly every promise the marijuana industry made prior to legalization was a lie. Instead, drug dealers wearing suits, now marijuana millionaires, have flooded our communities with drugs, creating Big Tobacco 2.0. They have hooked a generation of people, especially young people and minorities, on a drug that will have devastating impacts for generations to come. Here's the bottom line. Colorado is worse off because of recreational marijuana. In nearly every metric, Colorado is worse off. Proponents of marijuana legalizations are seeking to legalize a third American drug, if not more. The cost to society of alcohol and tobacco outweigh the benefits. We spend hundreds of millions of tax dollars, if not billions of dollars, seeking to reduce alcohol and tobacco consumption. Yet marijuana millionaires seek to introduce a third drug into society. Friends, this is not about decriminalization, it's about commercialization. They want to get as many people hooked on their drug as they can for profit. Has marijuana had such a negative impact? Let's look at the facts. Number one, safety of children. The safety of young people has been severely compromised, not just in Colorado, but any state that legalizes recreational or medicinal marijuana has higher youth use rates than states that don't. We've seen an overall increase in youth use rates in Colorado since medicinal and recreational marijuana have been legalized. We're still number one or number two, based upon the study you look at, for youth use rates in the country by nearly every measure. We know for a fact that marijuana harms developing brains. Even the American Psychological Association has condemned use of marijuana by young people for its harmful effects on the brain. We know it lowers IQ. Yet the marijuana industry just this past month, over 3.5 years after it became recreationally legal, agreed not to make marijuana-laced edibles that look like children's candy. Frankly, if these drug dealers in suits gave a damn about youth consumption, they would have never created marijuana-laced children's candy to begin with. Teens that use marijuana are 3 times more likely to drink, 26 times more likely to use illicit drugs, and 37 times more likely to smoke tobacco. 1 in 6 teens who smoke marijuana will become addicted to it. Let's move on now to personal health. Science has demonstrated that marijuana devastates your body. Chronic use of smoked marijuana is associated with increased risks of cancer, lung damage, bacterial pneumonia, and poor pregnancy outcomes. One recent study from Harvard Medical School found marijuana smokers increased their risk of heart attack 5 times over that of non-smokers. Marijuana users have a higher risk of stroke compared to people who do not use the drug. Some doctors are beginning to connect marijuana consumption with long-term brain damage, including possibly Alzheimer's disease. The Institute of Medicine, American Society of Addiction Medicine, American Medical Association, American Cancer Society, American Academy of Pediatrics, the National Multiple Sclerosis Society, the American Glaucoma Society, and the American Academy of Ophthalmology all agreed that smoked marijuana as medicine administered by various states is unacceptable. Now, my opponents may challenge certain studies, but here's something they cannot deny. There is no study that says marijuana is good for you. Let's move on to the safety of our communities. We were promised by the marijuana industry that legalizing, regulating, and commercializing marijuana would eliminate the black market. It's simply false. Even by their own touted estimates, 27% of all money spent in Colorado on marijuana is still being spent on the black market. That's over a quarter, nearly a third. Just this past week, it was reported by Channel 7 that Drug Enforcement Agency agents across Colorado are dealing with a growing problem, a surge of illegal grows in rural parts of the state. Documents show agents are seeing a jump of about 50% in illegal grows across rural areas. Our own Attorney General, Cynthia Kaufman, said the criminals are still selling on the black market. We have plenty of cartel activity in Colorado and plenty of illegal activity that has not decreased at all. Safety on the roads. According to the NHTSA data, those who tested positive for alcohol and fatal crashes from 2013 to 2015 grew 17%, from 129 to 151. By contrast, the number of drivers who tested positive for marijuana in fatal accidents jumped 145%, from 47 in 2013 to 115 in 2016. During that time, the prevalence of testing drivers for marijuana use did not change. Bottom line, more people are smoking pot and driving and killing fellow Coloradans. Harms to social services. We've had a rise in homelessness in Colorado linked to the legalization and commercialization of marijuana, an increase in emergency room visits, more marijuana in our schools, an increase in petty crime. All of these cost taxpayer dollars and increases government involvement in our communities. Harm to business. Colorado business leaders complain about how difficult it is to hire quality employees who are testing positive for illicit drug use. Any economic or job gains by the industry must be measured by the jobs lost due to marijuana consumption. In fact, positive workplace marijuana tests have tripled since the year Colorado legalized recreational pot. Jim Johnson of the construction company GE Johnson, the CEO, said his company has encountered so many job candidates who have failed pre-employment drug tests because of their THC use that it is actively recruiting construction workers from other states. Let's talk about loss of transparency, loss of good government, loss of good medicine. The Denver Post has called for the Colorado Bureau of Investigation to launch an independent investigation into the number of marijuana state regulators who have left government to work for the marijuana industry. One regulator was indicted in a huge illegal marijuana fraud case. We have no press transparency. 3 reporters, including reporters from the Denver Post, the Associated Press, and the Durango Herald, have left major newspapers to work for the marijuana industry. When it comes to medicine, we're losing faith in our doctors. Mr. Corry himself represented 4 doctors who had their licenses suspended by the Colorado State Medical Board. The board claims that the 4 doctors provided excessive medical marijuana plants to more than 1,500 patients. Some included prescriptions for 75 plants per individual. The recommended amount is 6. Irrelevant tax revenue. The tax revenue generated by marijuana is negligible. The costs far outweighed the revenues brought in. In fiscal year 2016, marijuana tax revenue resulted in $156 million. That sounds like a lot, but the total tax revenue for Colorado was $13 billion, making marijuana 1.18% of the total tax revenue. What about schools? Total 2016-17 marijuana revenue for Colorado Department of Education is $54.2 million. Wow, sounds like a lot. Not if your annual budget is $6.3 billion. That means marijuana revenue makes up about 0.86% of the total CDE budget. What about money going to classrooms? $40 million of marijuana tax revenue is spent on the state's public school capital construction assistance program. Again, $40 million sounds like a lot. That's what the industry touts. Well, when your statewide facility assessment determined a need for nearly $18 billion in capital construction projected through 2018, that means marijuana provides about 0.2% of the necessary capital for school construction projects. If you ask any teacher in Colorado, would they rather have less kids on pot or an additional 0.2% for school construction projects, every single teacher will tell you they'd rather have less kids on pot. Finally, expansion of big government. Marijuana is the #1 reason why college students skip class. As they skip class, they skip work. Who's going to take care of them? The truth is that the countries that expand access to illicit drugs also expand entitlement services right afterwards. While our society may be leaning libertarian on illicit drug regulations, they're not leaning that direction on social services. The result? Coloradans are paying the price for social services for the homeless and drug addicted with tax dollars, while the marijuana industry makes hundreds of millions of dollars. We are left cleaning up the mess while drug dealers in suits are getting rich. Whether it's the safety of our children, our personal health, our communities, our roads, our businesses, loss of transparency and good government, all for irrelevant tax revenue and greater expansion of big government. Marijuana has devastated Colorado by every metric. If Colorado is a grand experiment in marijuana commercialization, it has failed miserably and should be rejected entirely by other states. Thanks.
All right.